They gave me a tiny alien woman as a reward. Now she won't let go of my leg. They pinned a medal to my jacket at Dock 17 while the synth brass band wheezed through the anthem and the hulls of ships threw back the sound like distant thunder. I dragged 5 miners out of a collapsed ice cavern on Cygnus Beta, and the port council wanted a spectacle. What I didn't expect was the glass capsule they rolled out on a velvet trolley, glowing faintly blue. Inside, a woman no taller than my forearm sat cross-legged on a cushion of moss. Hair like hammered silver. Eyes a deep tidal green. A delicate collar circled her throat, etched with sigils I didn't recognize. A Kithrin, the chief counselor announced with a smile practiced for cameras. A bond keeper. Her gift. A token of gratitude. The capsule hissed open. The tiny woman considered the crowd, considered me, and leaped. She landed on my boot in a blur of pale limbs and silk wraps. Her small hands found the cuff of my pant leg, and she climbed with terrifying speed, stopping at my knee. Then she wrapped herself around my calf like a child hugging a tree. A tremor of laughter ran through the onlookers. My face burned. "Miss," I said softly, balancing as best I could. "You don't have to." She pressed her cheek to my leg. "Anchor," she whispered, her voice like wind bells. "I anchor." "Charming," the counselor declared. "The Kithrin choose one person to attach to. It's quite an honor." Felt a lot less like honor and a lot more like possession. I got us out of there the second the speeches ended. On the gangway to my freighter, the Mender's Luck, she clung with the tenacity of a clamp. I tried to ease her onto a folded blanket on a crate. She shook her head, gripped tighter. "Anchor safe," she repeated. "Leg safe." "Okay," I said, limping into the cockpit. "Leg it is." Her name was Sera. She spoke trade tongue in short, careful shapes. She didn't like the collar. When I asked about the symbols, she looked at the deck and went quiet. So I stopped asking and showed her the ship, the grease under my nails, the squeak in the navigation chair, the cargo bay that smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and ozone. While I ran a pre-flight, Sera tugged at my bootlace and tied it into a knot more elegant than any sailor's. "For luck," she said. Then she braided a loop of silk around my calf so she could ride without pinching me. Practical, that loop. Warm too. I tried not to think about how protective I felt already, like a storm wall had sprung up around my heart. We lifted into the sky on a pillar of pale fire. Her hair blew like a banner in the cockpit breeze. When the stars poured in, Sera touched the viewport, eyes luminous. "Big dark," she murmured. "But I hear threads." "Threads." She tapped the window with 2 fingers, listening. Metal hums. Bass hums back. We walk between. It made as much sense as anything. Space is made of poetry as often as math. At Outpost Murrin, a fringe port where repairs are cheap if you don't ask questions, trouble found us. I was redocking after a refuel when a man in a sun-bleached coat and mirror shades sidled up the ramp. "Heard you got yourself a Kithrin," he said, spitting the word like it tasted expensive. "Council shouldn't hand those out to ice diggers. I got buyers who appreciate rare things." Sera's fingers tightened on my calf. She didn't look at the man, she stared at the floor. "No sale," I said. "You think that collar means gift?" He smirked. "It's a leash. Transponder inside. Someone always listening." Sera's voice was a thread. "Yes." The man tilted his head, satisfied at my startled look. "If you change your mind." "I won't." He shrugged and drifted off like smoke. In the engine bay, I had Sera sit on the workbench, still close, one small hand hooked through the silk loop, as I scanned the collar. He was right. There was a bead the size of a lentil buried in the clasp. Ping every 30 seconds. I cursed under my breath. Can I cut it? Yes. Sera lifted her chin. Yes, please. The microtorch was steady in my hands until it wasn't. Flinch. The flame kissed my calf, a quick sting. Sera hissed, but not with fear, with focus. She leaned over, laid her palm over the burn, and the skin under her hand cooled. Smell like rain. Her touch left a smear of bioluminescent balm that soaked into me and vanished. Shipkeeper, she said. We heal the anchor that shelters us. The transponder bead clinked onto the tray. I wrapped the severed collar in an oily rag and stuffed it in a scrap bin. Thank you, Sera whispered. And for the first time she let go of my leg. Only for a heartbeat, to stroke the spot where the collar had been. Then she slid back to her place, cheek to my pants seam, calm as tidewater. We could have vanished into the lanes. But the thought of other gifts made my stomach turn. Sera held my calf while I powered toward the city lights like a vow on thrusters. They tailed us before we hit atmosphere. A lean courier with a silent signature shadowed our vector, then lunged through the debris ring like a knife through ribbons. Sera stood in her loop, one palm on the window, listening to the ship sing. Left, she said. Now. I rolled us under a tumbling solar sail where shadow swallowed radar. Up, she breathed, and I trusted her, knifing through a gap in the junk no sane pilot would take. Metal groaned, my teeth did too. The courier vanished into glare. Sera exhaled, and I realized I'd been holding my breath with her. On dirt again, under the city's sodium suns, we snuck into the port archives. Sera's fingers skimmed symbols painted in the margins of old manifests, the same sigils from her collar. Not bond, she whispered. Her jaw set. Tithe. My stomach went cold. We pulled records. Transfers. Rewards. I sent copies to every independent channel and dockworker union on the grid. By dawn, the port woke to sirens and angry voices. The council tried to meet us with guards. I met them with the files and 1,000 dockhands whose oaths were older than any of the council's clipped smiles. The crowd's noise was a living thing. Sera, still on my leg, stood taller, her hand gripping the silk loop like a pen about to write a new law. Port citizen, the chief counselor said to me, voice amplified, eyes flat. Release the property. I laughed, hear it in the back row loud. You gave me a person as payment for doing the right thing. You branded her with a tax stamp and a tracker. You don't have property. You have a problem. Sera dropped lightly to the railing and, for the first time in public, released my leg. She stepped forward, small and unshaking, and every voice hushed like someone pulled the gravity from the air. I am Sera of the Kithrin, she said, clear and bell-bright. We anchor by choice, not by chain. This human cut the chain. She glanced back at me, a quick, fierce smile. I choose my anchor. She walked back, climbed the loop, and hugged my calf. The crowd roared. Not laughter this time, but something like a storm finally breaking. New rules don't write themselves in one morning. But by nightfall, the collars were piles of scrap on a council chamber floor. A work group formed to repatriate the Kithrin who wanted to go home, and to hire those who wanted to stay as navigators, medics, engineers, paid, named, free. On the Mender's luck, I buckled into the pilot's chair. Sera tightened the silk loop and touched the glass. Big dark, she said. We walk between. Together. Together, I agreed.